The apocalypse is coming, but my best friend is overflowing with compassion. In the last life, she not only brought her relatives to my safe house, still insisting that I save the infected person outside the door. After I refused, she pointed at me crying in front of everyone. Xiaoxuan didn't mean to, she was just too scared to open the door. In the end, she was supported by everyone because of her kind little white flower persona. And the malicious me was hacked to death by the family members of the infected. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to before the end of the world. This time, I will eliminate this ghost in the chaotic world. On the third day of my rebirth, I got off work as usual. When I saw the anxious figure waiting downstairs at the company, I couldn't help but raise my eyebrows. My good friend, Lu Shui, she has blocked me for 3 days. It seems it's time to meet her. In my previous life, I had an incredibly real nightmare. In the dream, the virus ravages, zombies run rampant, and the apocalypse descends. After waking up, I inquired in many ways and actually discovered the undercurrents beneath the surface of peace. I built a safe house on the mountain and stored a large amount of supplies. Immediately told Lu Shui about the content of the nightmare and took her away. But later, she allowed her relatives to occupy my safe house under the banner of kindness, still bringing people to seek revenge after I refused to let the infected in. Xiaoxuan, this is what you deserve. If you had been kinder back then, it would have been better. The family of the infected brutally killed me, while my self-proclaimed kind best friend just leaned in the arms of the big shot and cried. It seems that everything is my own doing. It wasn't until the moment I died under the chaotic blades that I understood how true the saying, in chaotic times, one must first kill the Holy Mother, is. Xiaoxuan, what have you been busy with these days? I can't see you at all. Seeing me appear, Lu Shui fluttered into my arms like a cheerful little bird. She was already pure-looking, and now she was acting cute and weak, making everyone around her stare. I held her delicate arm, lowering my eyes and smiling with malice. In my previous life, I probably went to find Lu Shui just a few days ago. Since my rebirth, I have had no movement on the surface. It seems that someone is in a hurry. I've been working overtime and I'm quite busy these days. I took a few steps back with a smile on my face but not in my heart, and patted the dust off my clothes. After being pushed away, Lu Shui carefully observed my face. Only after seeing the dark circles under my eyes did she finally feel relieved. Xiaoxuan, have you not been sleeping well lately? Have you been having nightmares? She tightly pressed her lips together and worriedly took my hand. The palms were sweaty, revealing the owner's nervousness. Nightmare, apocalypse. A few strands of cool breeze swept by, and a layer of goosebumps appeared on my skin. These days, Lu Shui has been unusually reaching out to me, with WeChat messages coming one after another. I had long been suspicious, and now I finally have confirmation. Lu Shui has also been reborn. The game has become fun, after all. If the real executioner has lost their memory, how can I take my revenge to the fullest? Ah. I'm so tired that I collapse and sleep to death every day when I get home. I didn't dream at all. I innocently widened my eyes, watching her pretend to be confused. Sure enough, Lu Shui's expression froze. First is disbelief, then comes the frown. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but swallowed it back. That little guy. I have something to do, so I'm leaving first. Lu Shui smiled slightly and turned to leave. I don't know if she believed what I said, just standing in place, thoughtfully watching the panicked figure disappear into the distance. Look, she is indeed still so hypocritical. Before I died in my previous life, I only then realized that she had been coveting the supplies in my safe house all along. I can roughly guess Lu Shui's thoughts. I drove an old, inconspicuous van for the company, closely following Lu Shui. She really is buying supplies rampantly, just as I guessed. Hundreds of pounds of rice, dry food, meat, and gasoline, also customized solar panels, generators. She followed the checklist I created for building a safe house in my previous life and made preparations one by one. Lu Shui has no money. That safe house was built with all my savings, this time without me. She extravagantly overspent on her credit card and even borrowed from loan sharks. I sat in the car leisurely watching, secretly laughing at her foolishness. At first, She bought a large amount of supplies and filled in a real address in the logistics, which is equivalent to exposing the safe house. Secondly, the solar panels in the list have glass surfaces that reflect light during the day, making them easy to spot. In my last life, my safe house was found because of this, leading to a series of troubles, but Lu Shuai was busy attending to her relatives at the time and did not pay attention to this small disturbance. Third, the debt collection cycle for usury is short, and she may not be able to hold on until the end. The cold wind was rising outside the car window, and fine snowflakes were falling down. Looking at Lu Shuai busy in the wholesale market, I smiled broadly. Little Saint Mother, wish you good luck. Lu Shuai was busy and bustling, and I was no less so. I rented a large warehouse in the suburbs with fake information, and also a truck, only go out at midnight every day in a messy way to transfer supplies. I chose a different location for the address of the new safe house this time, a safer foothill. It is a small bungalow that seems unremarkable at first glance: bank-level explosion-proof doors, explosion-proof glass, electric fences, reinforced walls. I didn't do any of these reinforced defense projects for the renovation. Just kidding. Isn't this making it obvious to everyone that someone lives here? The small bungalow is just a smokescreen. The real safe house is underground, in a dark basement that would never be discovered. I dug a long tunnel. The tunnel leads to an abandoned wartime underground fortress, which is advantageous for reconnaissance and has a high defense coefficient. Vacuum-packed rice, flour, grains, and compressed biscuits occupy most of the space. As these long shelf-life foods take up the majority, I have stored a large amount of purified water and also found drinkable surface water not far away. I have bought enough daily necessities like pots, bowls, ladles, and cotton clothes for over 10 years. Generators, honeycomb coal, freezers, heaters, medicines, and other supplies are also stored to the maximum capacity. Finally, I installed hidden cameras along the way 3 kilometers near the small bungalow for real-time monitoring. Everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. After doing all this, I secretly returned home before dawn, lying down on the bed, tired yet satisfied. After my rebirth, I sold my 200 square meter flat in the city center to raise funds, and I will move out next month. There are 5 days left until the apocalypse. After not sleeping for a while, Lu Shuai came to the door. She knocked hard on the door, and when she saw me come out, she tearfully wrapped her arms around mine. Xiaoxuan, can you lend me some money? What happened? It's probably high-interest loans that have come knocking. I raised my hand to stop her from entering. Pretending to care as I embraced her, I moved all the furniture out of the room and sold it on the second-hand market for money. If she sees it, it might give me away. Fortunately, Lu Shuai was not insistent on entering. She just stood in place, crying and sobbing. My dad is in the hospital and needs 200,000. Woo-woo, Xiaoxuan, please help save my dad. I'll give you 50,000. I didn't want to waste time with her, so I straightforwardly interrupted Lu Shuai's words. She looked at me in shock, with tears still hanging at the corners of her eyes, ready to fall. Xiaoxuan, I knew you were the kindest. Woo-woo-woo. Lu Shuai excitedly hugged me, as if she had nothing to do with the person from my past who scolded me harshly. I concealed the indifference in my eyes and patted her shoulder. My house's water pipe is leaking. Last time I heard you say your neighbor specializes in fixing water pipes. Can you give me his contact information? Okay. Fearing that I might change my mind, Lu Shuai immediately sent me the neighbor's phone number after taking the bank card. She couldn't even be bothered to make small talk and hurriedly left. I held the phone, looking at the large characters, Li Wu, on it. In her last life, Lu Shuai disregarded my objections and insisted on bringing all the neighbors and relatives she knew to the safe house. Li Wu is one of them. He said he is a plumber. It is estimated that even Lu Shuai doesn't know that he is actually a weapons dealer involved in both the underworld and legitimate society. In the apocalypse, zombies run rampant, and weapons are crucial. This person's value to me is far more important than 50,000 yuan. The person who came to meet in the alley at midnight was not Li Wu. Under the dim streetlight, the man is dressed in black athletic wear, with sharp and refined features. He held a shabby box and looked at me with no emotion. Lifting his eyelids, dressing like this in the underworld really isn't too flashy. The two looked at each other in silence for a while. I threw the money from the plastic bag over, and only then did the man pull out the custom-made tang knife from inside and hand it over. The blade is drawn from its sheath, and a crisp sound of slicing through the air is heard, sharp and revealing. It strikes to the quick. I wonder if cutting up zombies can be as easy as chopping vegetables. I fondled it for a long time before looking up and humbly asking, what is the effect of this thing when it comes to beheading people? The man's gaze was extremely complex, and his hand counting the money was momentarily dazed. He frowned, and his eyes revealed a hint of annoyance. Not far away, a few faint unusual sounds suddenly came from the alley. Ha ha ha. I suddenly stood up and blocked the man's steps as he was about to investigate. If I heard correctly, that's the sound of zombies. The apocalypse has arrived. The apocalypse has just begun, and most people haven't reacted yet. Occasionally seeing news about people biting people, everyone just jokingly refers to it as rabies or mental illness. I drove the rented SUV to the suburbs, bringing only a small amount of fresh ingredients. After staying at the gas station for 2 days, I finally spotted Lu Shui. Several business vehicles drove up, fully loaded with people and a large amount of supplies. The first person to get out of the car was Lu Shui, and she smiled sweetly under the support of the crowd. I know without guessing that she is driving her relatives and neighbors to the safe house to take refuge. I pretended to be surprised and hugged her. Xiao Shui, what a coincidence. Lin Sun, what are you doing here? When Lu Shui turned her head to see me, the smile on her face almost couldn't be maintained. She tried to hide her uncomfortable look and looked toward my car without a trace. The company organized a camping trip in the suburbs, and I rushed to join. Are you all going on a trip? In front of everyone's eyes, I confidently opened the trunk of the off-road vehicle, smiling innocently and purely. Inside, there were only a few scattered simple tools and ingredients. It doesn't feel like going to seek refuge at all. Lu Shui secretly breathed a sigh of relief, dispelling her doubts. She was about to say something to brush it off when the neighbor ant next to her immediately came over to remind her enthusiastically. Oh no, what kind of travel is this? Xiao Shui said the end of the world is coming and wants to take us to escape. Xiao Shui is really too kind. Little girl, you should come with us too. Xiao Shui, is what Auntie said true? I was so scared that I tightly held on to Lu Shui's hand, not wanting to miss any expression on her face. Seeing her hard-hidden secret being leaked, Lu Shui's face indeed turned ugly, but she couldn't get angry at the ant, so she had to swallow her anger and nod. Xiao Shui, don't be angry. I originally wanted to find you right away, but I didn't have time to come because I was trying to protect everyone's safety. I'm sorry. She bit her lip and lowered her head, not daring to look at me, on the verge of tears. It feels somewhat like being blamed by me and unable to refute it. Sure enough, people around immediately looked at me with questioning eyes. I stood quietly by and watched her act. Before everyone reacted, I frowned and held her hand. How could you think like that? I'm just happy that you saved so many people during difficult times. Shouldn't we all work together to get through the tough times? Lu Shui was taken aback and looked up, feeling doubtful about my reaction, and I just looked at her openly and directly. Considering the limited supplies in the safe house in the last life, plus the unpredictable nature of people in the apocalypse, I strongly opposed her taking people on the road in such a grand manner, but she scolded me harshly for being cold-blooded and malicious. It also aroused the resentment of many people. It's no wonder she doesn't believe me since I let it slip so easily now. I have learned Sonda, and I will definitely protect everyone with you. I pressed on with the victory and continued to learn how she established her persona, pretending to be a white lotus. Who can't do that? Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, everyone laughed. I vaguely heard someone in the crowd praising me for being both beautiful and kind. Lu Shui had no choice but to half-heartedly agree, tried to raise her smile and invite me on my way. It's just that this smile looks a bit awkward. Before getting in the car, I scanned the crowd and my gaze lingered on the scarred man's face in the corner. The scar-faced man glared at me fiercely. He is, Xiao Shui, can you not judge people by their appearance? I saw him alone and pitiful on the road, and I wouldn't leave him behind. Lu Shui immediately stood in front of him, looking at me with righteous indignation. Her small face was tense, and she pressed her lips together warily. I raised my eyebrows slightly and looked at her with a hint of amusement. After the apocalypse, Lu Shue's maternal instincts could no longer be suppressed. She always picks up some unknown people on the road with great kindness, regardless of putting everyone in danger, but the equally kind her, yet personally pushed me onto the guillotine, just because I refused to help her save the infected person bitten by a zombie. That's pretty good, take it with you. I smiled and, ignoring her reaction, got into the car. Forget it. Let's just pretend we don't know that Scarface is a henchman of the Lone Shark gang chasing her for debts. It's pretty good, but it's just inviting the wolf into the house. Anyway, it's not my room that I'm entering. Lu Shue's safe house is arranged exactly the same as in my previous life. Even better, a large amount of supplies is piled up from the second floor to the entrance of the hall. Her relatives and neighbors were moved to tears, surrounded by endless praise. Lu Shue felt a bit embarrassed and scratched her head. Xiaoxue, your uncle and aunt are getting older. The room on the second floor is spacious and safe, so let them stay there. I searched around the room a few times and loudly suggested at the stairway. One of them was reserved by Lu Shue for herself, decorated both exquisitely and beautifully. The uncles and aunts looked at Lu Shue with anticipation, and after she nodded, they hurried upstairs, following my guidance. They quickly occupied all the vacant rooms. They gratefully patted my head and said I was a good child. Lu Shue was sitting quietly on the sofa downstairs, just gripping the fabric tightly with her hands, almost tearing them apart. Xiaoxue, let's sleep in the living room. It's been a long time since we chatted together. After greeting everyone, I went downstairs in a good mood. Ignore her slightly twisted brows and eyes. Really good. So this is what it feels like to be a saint. When I entered the kitchen, I took out all the precious ingredients that Lu Shue had hidden in advance. It is called providing everyone with nutrition. The aunts are busy cooking with great enthusiasm, smiling brightly. During the meal, only Lu Shue and her family were unhappy. Xiaoxuan, save some food. You didn't bring any supplies on the car when you came, and there are so many of us. Mom Lu looked at me with concern as I finished off an abalone in one bite, unable to hold back her words. Lu Shue tugged at her sleeve to dissuade her, but her own complexion was still slightly stiff, and it was not hard to see the pain in her heart. Is this what makes you feel heartbroken? Wasn't it quite enjoyable when I sacrificed my supplies in the safe house where I used to live? Now I am just using their own methods to return the favor. I'm sorry, Xiaoxue. Earlier, when you said uncle was sick, I gave you all the money I had saved up. I've been eating quite frugally these past few days. And today I couldn't help but eat a bit more. After speaking, I pretended to be embarrassed and lowered my head, and tears suddenly slipped from the corner of my eye. The picked up vegetables were trembling as they were put down, and I fiercely scooped up a few bites of white rice. The lively atmosphere in the hall suddenly disappeared, and the conversation stopped. Everyone's gaze slid past the incredibly healthy Lu Dad and landed on Lu Shue. Everyone who is older is very perceptive and immediately understands what is going on. Everyone is speculating that Lu Shue cheated me out of my money to buy supplies. People's impression of me has improved a bit. What's wrong with taking a couple of bites? It's still someone else's money. That's right. It's just that Xiaoxuan is too kind and gets bullied. Under the sarcastic remarks of many voices, Lu Shue's face gradually turned pale. She explained anxiously, tears welling up in her eyes. When the atmosphere finally eased, I silently put down the bowl. He made an excuse to patrol for safety hazards and went out amidst everyone's pleas. When I closed the door, I saw Lu Shue casting a resentful glance. In this life, the person who was bullied for being kind has become me, my good best friend. What are you going to do? I didn't lie. Back at the SUV, I pulled out a small toolbox from a hidden corner of the trunk, while no one was paying attention. I installed high-definition cameras with no blind spots around. One of them is facing the door of the safe house. If I remember correctly, the person I'm waiting for should be about to appear. Knock knock knock. Early in the morning, there was a knock on the door of the safe house. Everyone saw the scene outside clearly through the visual doorbell. A little yellow-haired person weakly collapsed in front of the door. The yellow-haired person had torn cloth wrapped around their hand. Their eyes were vacant, and they were gasping for breath. Clearly, it is an infected person bitten by a zombie. In less than 2 hours, he will become a zombie. No one knows that this little yellow-haired kid is actually the brother of the boss of the Ace City safe base after the apocalypse, except for me and Lu Shui. In my last life, Lu Shui insisted that I save people, trying to pull them into the house, for the safety of the crowd. I coldly refused, but in doing so, I planted the seeds of death. Someone is injured, let's hurry and save him. Before Lu Shui could react, I hurriedly went downstairs with worry. Just as I was about to unlock the door, Lu Shui's expression changed instantly. She is reborn. In her previous life, she witnessed the yellow-haired person turn into a zombie outside the house. If we let him in, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lu Shui rushed down fiercely and forcefully knocked my hand away. In my puzzled gaze, she gritted her teeth and explained, Xiaoxuan. He has injuries, maybe he was bitten by a zombie, let's observe him further, but he hasn't mutated yet. Xiaoxue, how cruel you are. What's the difference between not opening the door now and killing him? He's only in his teens. How ridiculous. The same words as in the last life. I frowned and stubbornly pretended to want to open the door. During the dispute, the refugees in the safe house gathered together, but they only watched from a distance. Older uncles and aunts have soft hearts and are easily misled. Lu Shui not only has a saintly heart herself, but she has also brainwashed her family. Seeing that she refused to open the door, Lu Ma felt embarrassed under the accusing gazes of the crowd and immediately got angry. Xiaoxue, what's wrong with you? Open the door quickly. Mom knows you're not that kind of cold-blooded and vicious person. Without reason, I was criticized and blamed, and Lu Shui secretly shot me a fierce glance. She gritted her teeth and opened the door, allowing the blonde to squeeze half of his body in. The person's eyes were completely red, and a foul smell came from the wound. Seeing the opportunity ripe, I quietly reached for the tang knife on my back, wanting to resolve it. At this moment, a strange change occurred. Ha ha ha. The zombies in the woods were attracted by the persistent knocking of the blonde. I am very close to Lu Shui. In the blink of an eye, using her body as cover, Lu Shui forcefully pushed the yellow-haired person out the door. The boy awkwardly took a few steps back and fell into the pile of zombies. Before he had a chance to stand up, he was overwhelmed by the approaching zombie companions. Xiaoxuan, how could you push someone out? The door of the safe house was closed in an instant. Lu Shui screamed and took a few steps back, looking at me with a face full of terror. The incident happened suddenly, and no one saw anything clearly. They were a bit stunned by her shouting, looking at each other in silence. In the past 2 days, my gentle and kind image has deeply resonated with people. Most people were waiting for me to explain and did not believe Lu Shui's one-sided story. I didn't. He fell out because he couldn't stand on his own. Xiaoxue, why do you have to say that? I looked pale and collapsed on the ground. Tears fell down all of a sudden. Looking extremely innocent and fragile, pitiful, this child Xiaoxuan is very kind and could never do such a thing. Yeah, just now she took the initiative to go down and open the door to save someone. Liu Xue, are you mistaken? Don't wrongfully accuse people. Relatives and neighbors stood up one after another to speak for me. The enthusiastic aunt even came forward to help me up. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. Lu Shui bit her lower lip and started to cry, under the questioning. She had no choice but to reluctantly change her statement. Well, maybe I was too anxious and read it wrong. It's okay, I forgive you. I smiled generously and casually grabbed a bottle of expensive wine from the wine cabinet. Withstanding her cannibalistic gaze, she pretended to be disheartened and returned to the room. She just boasted about her concealed angle when pushing someone. But I installed a camera directly facing the safe house, so it should be able to capture everything clearly. The pain of being hacked to death by a chaotic knife in the last life is still vividly felt. I touched my neck and raised a malicious smile in the darkness. She must experience every bit of the suffering I have endured. As for that yellow-haired guy, he was doomed to die the moment he was bitten and became an infected. No one can save him. Just when everyone thought the storm had settled and they could finally live peacefully in the safe house, Lu Shui's lone shark came to the door. Standing at the back of the debt collection team is the scar-faced man she kindly picked up on the road. He sneaked out last night and brought people to the door early this morning. The newcomers are all tall and strong, carrying clubs and sharp knives. Lu Shui stood behind me in a panic, helplessly asking me to help her solve it. You just need to pay back the money you owe. I have no money. Xiaoxuan, can you help me? Amid the clamoring outside, Lu Shui's lips twitched slightly. Feeling guilty as she turned her face away, she tightened her grip on my hand and leaned out to say loudly, "My friend has money, I will pay you back. Don't be impulsive, our boss has set his sights on this safe house. You all get out, and use the house to pay off the debt." The door of the safe house was opened a crack during the negotiation, and the hall was filled to the brim with supplies that couldn't be hidden. The scar-faced man scoffed disdainfully and said fiercely, Lu Shui was unhappy. And after a moment of hesitation, she slammed the door shut. He hurriedly ran to the main switch and pulled down the power grid switch. The usury gang was immediately blocked from approaching. The man in charge was enraged and ordered someone to put the truck in gear. The unmanned empty car crashed straight through the electric fence and blocked the front of the house. "If you don't hand over the house, none of you will survive today." The words of threat reached everyone's ears. Lu Shui originally wanted to grit her teeth and persevere, but her relatives and neighbors were all terrified. He stubbornly opened the door despite her objections, just like in the last life when they opened the door in front of the infected person's family and pushed me out. I smiled faintly a few times and followed them out obediently. The safe house and all the supplies were completely occupied by the Lone Shark gang. Even the SUV I parked on the outskirts was taken by them. Lu Shui stood silently in place, tears streaming down her face, filled with unwillingness. After crying for a while, she wiped her tears, stood up, and announced with bright eyes, "Don't be sad, everyone. I know there is a safe base to the south where we can seek refuge." Came, under the cover of the shadows in the woods. I quietly curled the corners of my lips. The infected person's brother is the boss of the safe base. Lu Shui relied on selling herself in her previous life to receive his protection. In the past, I simply didn't open the door, but in this life, Lu Shui personally pushed the yellow-haired one into the pile of zombies. I want to see how she personally plays herself to death. "Xiaoxuan, our car is full. You might have to find a way to the safe base on your own." Lu Shui walked up to me and looked down at me from a high position. The few business cars they have look plain and unadorned, and have not been damaged. I pretended to be flustered as I held Lu Shui's hand, not letting go no matter how much she tried to shake it off. "Don't leave me behind. If we squeeze a bit we should still be able to fit someone in." "I'm sorry, Xiaoxuan. We need to place supplies in the car. Without supplies, everyone will starve. I have a responsibility to take care of them, and I can't put everyone in danger for you." Lu Shui struggled to break free from my hand, her voice already tinged with tears as she spoke. The 7 aunts and 8 uncles following her have now turned their eyes away, pretending not to hear the commotion over here. This is all default to leave me behind. I frowned in difficulty, but in the end, I nodded in understanding and agreement. "All right then, you all be safe. I will go to the safe base to find you. Take care, Xiaoxuan." Hearing me obediently agree, Lu Shui secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at me with reluctance, then quickly called her relatives and neighbors to get in the car and drove away. The sound of the engine is getting farther away. I took one last look at the safe house and went down the mountain. At the hidden foot of the mountain, I turned on the pager. "Hey Chow, come pick me up." On the way back to the small flat, He Chow calmly steered the wheel. He was still dressed in black athletic gear, but the aloofness and indifference in his brows and eyes had completely faded away. After the transaction of the Tang knife, we kept in touch. "You just told me the address of the shelter like this. Aren't you afraid of being deceived by me? Then I'll cut off your head." I leaned back in the seat, leisurely wiping the knife in my hand. He Chow. I heard this name from Li Wu in my previous life, an undercover agent investigating illegal arms trafficking. If it weren't for me stopping him at the alley that night and taking him away from the zombies, I estimate he is going to handcuff me on the spot and send me to the station. I don't believe him. I only believe his identity. The apocalypse you spoke of has really come. He sighed and pressed the accelerator all the way down. before reaching the shelter. I cautiously threw away all the communication devices on me. Then he brought He Chao to live in that secret fortress. I could tell at a glance that he had utilitarian value. Sure enough, this person not only has good physical fitness but can also single-handedly fight zombies. He also has strong life skills and calmly took on the role of a nanny without any complaints. When Lu Shui came to the door, I was happily lying on the leather sofa drinking the century egg and lean meat porridge that He Chao had made. The surveillance cameras along the way captured her figure, and I immediately got up, grabbed He Chao and returned to the small bungalow through the tunnel. I already knew that Lu Shui secretly installed a tracker on my phone. I didn't expect her to arrive so quickly. Lin Sun, I know you have been reborn too. Open the door. Lu Shui was banging on the door forcefully, her pure face filled with anger. I casually pulled down a few strands of hair to avoid looking too comfortable. When I opened the door, I had a face full of innocence and confusion. Xiaoshui, why are you here? What rebirth? What are you talking about? As she spoke, Lu Shui suddenly pushed me aside and rushed into the house. She sneered a few times and was about to expose my true identity. Stop pretending. If you weren't reborn, how could you have so many supplies in the house? She fell silent as she spoke, because the small room was empty. There are no supplies, as she said. I stood silently by, watching her expression change back and forth. Can't help but feel embarrassed for her. Lin Sun, what's wrong? He Chao was carrying egg drop soup and walked out of the kitchen, asking in confusion. His tall figure and outstanding appearance immediately caught Lu Shui's attention. She softly climbed up my arm, her face full of concern, and said, who is this Xiaoshuan? Why are you hiding here with someone else? I coldly brushed her hand away and walked to the table as if nothing had happened, calmly sipping soup under the gaze of two pairs of eyes. Oh, he saved me on the run. This place he found. Seeing Lu Shui subtly move towards He Chao, I kindly spoke up to explain. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. There was a hint of understanding in their eyes as they looked at me. I stretched lazily and falsely claimed that I was full and needed to go rest in my room. Signaling He Chao to stay, He Chao was unwilling and reluctantly left behind with a face full of resentment. Hello, my name is Lu Shui. May I temporarily take shelter here as well? Lu Shui had a shy smile at the corner of her mouth as she politely and friendly extended her hand to He Chao. This trick has been very useful for men in the past, but unfortunately, it was useless for He Chao. Moreover, he is now eating and drinking my things, without a stance to speak. Lu Shui's hand awkwardly hovered in midair. After being treated coldly, she couldn't help but redden her eyes, biting her lower lip, hesitantly opening her mouth. Did Xiaoshuan say something to you? I had no choice but to leave her at that time. The lives of more than a dozen people were in my hands, but, if she resents me, I deserve it. Tears the size of beans slid down her pale little face. Looking delicate and charming like a weak willow swaying in the wind, he still didn't respond. Looking at the camera, quietly waiting for my instructions, after I adjusted the camera up and down, he nodded in agreement. Lu Shui believed that her words had moved the other party, and couldn't help but feel a bit delighted. When He Chao turned back to the room, she finally relaxed and showed a proud expression. Little did they know that I had taken everything in. That night, a few zombies came around the small bungalow. The howling sound arose in the quiet night. Lu Shui was terrified. She rushed into He Chao's room in a panic, only to find it empty. After everything calmed down, she looked at us in shock as we walked in from outside. He Chao followed behind me, carefully wiping the stains off the blade. In the silence, Lu Shui began to choke back her sobs softly. Xiaoshuan, why did you run out too? He Chao has to kill the zombies and also protect you. It's too dangerous. There was a hint of complaint in her eyes. It is clear that the person who truly wields a knife to kill zombies is He Chao. He Chao just smiled and said nothing, pouring a cup of water and placing it in front of me. Seeing that we were all indifferent, Lu Shui performed for half a day but finally could not continue. She hesitantly spoke up and revealed the true purpose of her visit to me. I waited for you at the safe base for a long time, but you never came. I know the person in charge inside. Come with me to take refuge. The ruler of the safe base, that bald man who killed me, presumably in this life, Lu Shua has already started to inform on others. I held the cup and drank it all in one go, tilting my head back to block the hatred in my eyes. I'm not going. It's quite nice here. Are you still angry with me? Forget it. If you're not going, He Chao, let's go together. She softly called out He Chao's name. Feeling wronged as she went over to take his hand, He Chao raised his eyebrows and nimbly dodged, not going. Why? I like the feeling of being protected by others. He placed the wiped knife in my hand and responded with a cold face. I patted his head with relief and smiled. Lu Shua finally realized that she had been played. She glared at me with resentment. The malice in her eyes was unmistakable. The door of the small bungalow was slammed shut, and the sound of a car engine could be heard outside. She drove away with my car. Is this the reason you deliberately left the key in the car? The moonlight spilled in through the window, and He Chao sat down beside me, handing me a cup of tea. I take a few sips and nod calmly. Yeah, otherwise how could this useless person get to that base? A cold wind suddenly rises outside the window, and the shadows of the trees sway. I quietly enjoyed this scene, feeling pleased in my heart. Come on, Lu Shua, let's go back to that day and put an end to all of this. Bang! At dawn, I got up from the huge noise. He leisurely walked out with the breakfast made by He Chao in his mouth. A dense crowd of people surrounded the area outside. The bald man in his 30s had a look full of malice in his eyes. The person hiding behind him is Lu Shua. There are a few familiar faces in the crowd. They are Lu Shua's relatives. After seeing my figure, she stepped out from behind the bald man. In front of everyone, she once again pointed at me while crying. Just like in the last life, I'm sorry, Xiaoxuan, I originally wanted to help you hide it, but Brother Li is really working hard to find his brother. I can't bear to deceive him. Her sobs were intermittent, and the bald man gently held her in his arms. Lu Shua desperately held back her nausea and continued to accuse. If it weren't for your ruthless push that sent him out, he wouldn't have been eaten by zombies. He was only in his teens, still a child. It's all my fault. I should have fought to stop you. She nestled in the man's arms, heartbroken to the point of almost fainting. The man gently squeezed her hand and whispered to her, telling her not to blame herself. At that time, there were also relatives from the Lu family in the crowd who said they believed in me and supported me. They stood with righteous indignation, passionately testifying in support of Lu Shua's statement. I shook my head helplessly. Human nature is indeed untrustworthy. The bald man was furious, and he stared at me while raising the knife in his hand. The surrounding henchmen also gathered around. He Chao suddenly drew his weapon from behind and blocked in front of me. The footsteps of the crowd clearly hesitated for a moment. Wait a moment. I smiled and pushed aside He Chao, boldly walking up to the bald man with a tang knife in hand. He opened the video that had already been prepared in his phone. When she saw the contents inside, Lu Shua instantly collapsed to the ground. She looked pale, staring at me in shock, murmuring repeatedly, "How could it be? How could you have?" The video clearly captured the scene of her pushing the blonde to the ground and then closing the door. In my previous life, I probably went to find Lu Shua just a few days ago. From the heart, he turned his head, grinning with a sinister smile as he walked to Lu Shua's side and pressed her face to the ground. "Are you lying to me? I don't have it. Brotherly, that video is fake. She slandered me." Lu Shua stubbornly shirked responsibility, trying to throw the dirty water onto me, but he was kicked hard in the face by the bald man. Her screams were fragmented, her face covered in blood. Everyone on the scene fell silent, and no one dared to plead. Lu Shua looked at me with tears in her eyes, pleading, Xiaoxuan, please save me. It's not me. It's not me. Clearly it's you who won't open the door." Her mind fell into chaos. Memories and the previous life blurred together. I just stood quietly not far away, seriously reciting what she had said in her previous life. "This is all you deserve. It would have been better if you had been kinder back then." Hearing this, Lu Shua's eyes suddenly became clear. She struggled desperately, trying her best to crawl over. "Lin Sun, you have been reborn. You lied to me. You set me up. You deserve to die. You are the one who deserves to die." Everyone stepped back a few steps in disgust as they looked at her face, which had become hideous due to excessive distortion. Lu Shua was still screaming, her voice hoarse, but before she could curse a few times, the bald man grabbed her hair and slit her throat. The knife fell chaotically on her body, venting hatred. In my smile, she unwillingly closed her eyes forever. Lu Shue's ending is exactly the same as in my previous life. This is my revenge. The crowd quickly dispersed, leaving only Lu Shue's corpse lying on the ground. The zombies not far away smelled the blood and roared as they surrounded. I had no intention of admiring, and returned to the fortress from the tunnel. The heavy hatred in my heart slowly dissipates. From now on, I can finally get a good night's sleep.